The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
We are now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is today, Monday, August 15th, 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, man, it has been a weekend to remember, man. Just in news and politics, as well as for me. So I'll tell you guys about that in the bonus show. I'm going to do my best tonight. I'm going to stay after. I'm going to let my researchers go home early, and I'm going to stay after and do the bonus show because I've been talking about it. The bonus show is going to be for supporters of the Benjamin Dixon Show. It's just my way of saying an extra thanks to people who subscribe and are patrons rather of the Benjamin Dixon Show. So if you want to be a patron and you want to join us for the after party for the bonus show, go to patreon.com/the BPD show and join us. And I want to thank two of our newest patrons to come on board. Doug, thank you so much for your patronage. And Michael, thanks so much for your patronage. We absolutely can't do this without you. We're going to keep pushing and growing and doing what we can to bring you the best in political commentary and progressive news and et cetera, XYZ. So tonight, yesterday, Debbie Wasserman Schultz debated Tim Canova in the 23rd District of Florida debate in Florida. That's one of the reasons we are paying so much attention to that is because of the role that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has played nationally with the Democratic National Committee. So we'll discuss that. We're going to discuss Donald Trump's foreign policy speech. Of course, we're going to discuss the shooting in Milwaukee, the unrest, and everything that happened subsequently. We'll discuss that. I want to talk about Cam Newton and his interview in the GQ. And just a list of things, man, whatever comes across my mind tonight. 857-600-0518, right? Is that it? 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. I'm taking it light tonight because there are, some of the stories are very, very frustrating. So I'm intentionally going to try to just keep it light, man, because it's, it'll get to you. It will get to you, and it will drive you crazy. If you look at Milwaukee, the things that are going on there, it's just a lot, man. It's a lot, bro. I can't. So anyway, all right. So I guess obviously I'm going there. So I guess we're going to talk about the shooting in Milwaukee and the riots, the subsequent riots. So let's start there. Before I do that, all right. So it's almost it's just too frequent, man. It is too frequent. And I know I'm starting in the middle of a thought. I had a whole conversation with myself while I was quiet there. I know we have a nation of over 300 million people, right? I know in a population that large, there are going to be violent deaths. I know there are going to be police shootings. I know that the reason it seems so intense and so frequent now is because we're seeing it. I think this frequency has always occurred, but the frequency with which we're able to see it and experience it makes these types of shootings that much more draining And I know that's kind of a selfish perspective to think about this, because we are talking about a man's life. He is dead. We're talking about a family that's broken and shattered, but there's just a fatigue, man. That, like, when you cover this on a regular basis, I talk about this and I have to mention it because I hate having to cover these stories because they happen so frequently. But Slaville Smith, fatally shot by Milwaukee police in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ultimately leading to riots in the city. A 23-year-old black man, allegedly armed with a stolen gun, shot Saturday afternoon by police. This was during a foot pursuit. Officers said that the man was shot in the chest and in the arm. He fled from a car during a traffic stop on Saturday, and after being chased by two police officers, he was shot and killed. Police officers had dash cams and body cams rather, and the body cam footage, according to the mayor and to the different officials, they say that the body cam shows that he had a gun in his hand, yet the body cam footage has not yet been released. So, you know, he apparently had 500 rounds of ammunition on him. Listen, here's the deal with all of this is never about the innocence of a person. And I'm always slow to draw conclusions about the validity of a shoot, whether it was a clean shoot or not. However, when you add up the pieces of the puzzle and you add up the frequency with which this happens, there is a problem. And sometimes this means that people protest on behalf of people who were guilty, because there is an underlying problem that exists with police shootings, plural. So I don't have anything to say about Slaville Smith other than I don't have the facts. I don't know. I don't know what the video is going to show. I don't know what the body cam is going to show. I don't know. I do know that he did not have a quote unquote lengthy rap sheet like the police insinuated in the press conference. He had a minor infractions, very minor, like a traffic ticket violation, that he actually, something minor that he spent, a misdemeanor that he spent a day in jail for. Right. And according to his brother, I have not seen this confirmed, so I'm going to say this is according to his brother. Slaville had a permit to carry a weapon. The police officers saying that particular weapon was stolen. None of that has been Seville. I keep saying Slaville, but it's Seville Smith. But the evidence is still being pieced together. And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of him being an innocent person shot by the police. I'm just going to say that police officers in America in general are just too willing to take a life. This does not mean that every shooting is unjustified. This does not mean that every cop is bad. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is that there are underlying problems that exist in America that exacerbate the conversation because it is too frequent. It happens too often. People are getting killed that don't deserve that. In any other scenario, they wouldn't be killed, right? We're seeing situation. We see a fear of particularly black men. You saw that with, and there's so many names. Like I can't even think of I can't even think of the guy who was just now killed in the car next to his girlfriend. God, so many names, and that's the problem. Like trying to keep up with the names of all the people who have been killed by police officers over the last year, last 12 months, not the last 12 years, but the last 12 months is Philando Castile. It came back to me. Yeah, Philando Castile. Thanks. I knew if I talked long enough, I'd remember. But that's the problem. It's just too frequent. And here's the other problem, right? We act as though when people protest, one, we dismiss their protest because we villainize anybody who was killed by the police. And, you know, be honest with you, white folks listening, you guys don't protest when white people are killed by the police. So don't look at us when we protest when black people are killed by the police, right? Like, I don't know too many people who would not stand in solidarity with white Americans to protest white people getting killed by the police. I don't know. I mean, because we understand it's a connection, right? We understand that there's a race problem and there's systemic racism that's at play in our case. But we do understand that the overall conversation is a hyper militarization of our police and the trigger happiness of our police. And it's exacerbated in the black community because of race problems. So, you know, the fact that we're not protesting when all these white people are being killed by police, that's not our fault. That is, where is White Lives Matter that's going to protest police shootings? You know, if you go and protest, you start it. You start the protest for White Lives Matter and let White Lives Matter specifically address white people who are being killed by the police. And I guarantee you'll find some Black Lives Matter who will stand in solidarity with you, because in America in general, we just kill people. Our police officers are more likely to shoot you than maim you, than to just, you know, blow your kneecaps out, right? Or to find another solution to subdue you. So the frequency with which police officers kill in America is astonishing compared to other developed nations. That's number one. Number two, it's exacerbated in the black community by the fact that it has racial overtones and not just overtones, but it is triggered by a fear of blackness. But to come full circle to the point I was trying to make before I went off on this tangent is the fact that you cannot expect people who have been the target of police departments to never react and react violently. As bad as some people may think that statement is, when you look at the DOJ reports from Ferguson and you look at the DOJ reports, the Department of Justice reports from Baltimore, I guarantee you if they do an investigation of Milwaukee, they will find the same type of behavior where the police department overwhelmingly, disproportionately targeted people of color. And I don't care. I could care less if you're a black mayor. I don't care if you are a Democratic mayor. I don't care if you were. I don't care who's in charge. We have found, provable evidence of exactly what black people have been complaining about for a long time. And you cannot, again, I repeat, you cannot have generations of people born into this type of treatment by the police and never expect something to happen. That's one argument. Here's the other argument. People are shedding more tears about property being burned down than they have bothered to shed about one person who has been killed by the police. And not just black people, like people aren't even they're not even moved by white people who are killed by police. They only mention that when it's an opportunity to use that person as a prop against black people who are killed by police. Right? That's the only time you see these White Lives Matter, Black Lives, Blue Lives Matter, and All Lives Matter people come into the conversation, is when they can use those bodies to be props against black people. But you see that they have no sympathy, empathy, or compassion whatsoever about these black lives or even the white lives, but they shed damn tears over a gas station being burnt down. Forgive me if I don't give two shits about a gas station burning down. Yes, I would care if it was my own gas station. Yes, but I don't care. Because you know why? If they're a good business person, they've got insurance. And if they're a good business person, they'll be back in business. They'll rebuild. They'll be fine. That's what insurance is for, right? That's what happens. We're not going to condone. We're not going to say, go out and burn some shit down. We're not going to endorse it. But at the same time, I'm not going to spend time crying over it. And people all this weekend have been lamenting over the fact that angry people have lashed out and burned down a couple of buildings and burned up a police car. And the focal point of the entire conversation has been on the loss of property with zero attention to the loss of life. And the consistent and persistent every week, I don't want to talk about these things, but I have to, because every week, I'm going to try not to cuss today, right? Every week, there's a new person that we need to talk about that has gotten killed by the police. So much so that I can't even remember all the names. I probably just need to have a sheet up here with all the names so that I can even remember the 6-year-old white boy in Louisiana who was killed by 2 black police officers. I don't care what the race is. The problem is that you are putting people behind badges with weapons who are irresponsible, who probably would not qualify for any other job in real life. They have big egos, cannot stand to be challenged, and they cannot stand to be challenged by people of color, so much more than just people in general. Right. And you put people with these egos and you give them guns and you give them authority. Of course, you're going to see, and you foster environments that allow this type of behavior and that not only allow and not only condone, but profits off of this behavior. Look at Ferguson. They profited off of targeting and abusing the black community in Ferguson. Look at the data, and it is true. It is provable. It is verifiable. This is what happened in Ferguson. They had a profit center off of economically raping the black community. Look at Baltimore. They weren't even driving. I mean, they were making money off of it, but it looks like the driving force in Ferguson was money. In Baltimore, the driving force seems to be just a disdain for the black community. And so you have all of these forces at play. You have all of these driving factors, and you have these environments that are fostering this type of behavior, incentivizing this type of behavior, encouraging this type of behavior. And you wonder why somebody goes and burns something down. It's an act of frustration. It's an act of desperation. It's like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to do this. What we've seen historically. America likes to destroy stuff when we're angry at it. This is in the most American tradition ever. Rioting and destruction of property when you're angry is an American tradition since the Boston Tea Party. Miss me with any other analysis of it. It is as American as damn apple pie. So we're just taking your lead. Now, to come full circle, and not even full circle, but to give another shade of light onto it, you will always, in every peaceful protest, you will always have insurrectionists, you will always have opportunists, and you will always have anarchists who want to seize on the moment for them to loot and to plunder. Right? You have people out there who probably don't care 1 cent about Black lives, don't care 1 cent about the movement, don't care 1% about anything except for what they can seize upon this opportunity to steal. Yes. Big surprise. Is there anybody out there surprised that this happens and this exists, that you're going to find people in the middle of a peaceful protest for Black lives? You're going to find people who want it to turn into rioting and looting so they can get a TV. This happens in every community. And the only reason I bring that up is because I don't want there to be any disillusion, or I don't want anyone to feel as though they have to defend every person and every picture that comes across that screen, right? Some of the people rioting and looting are useless to our cause, detrimental to our cause, right? But there are some people who are out there legitimately angry about their experiences at the hands of the Milwaukee Police Department and the Milwaukee's Sheriff's Office. I guarantee you, because you cannot have this type of years of systemic oppression and people not experience it and then act on it. So now they've called out the National Guard, right? Sheriff David Clark, America's black white supremacist. He's the from Dave Chappelle. He is David Clark is the black white supremacist. I mean, he hates black people. Listen to this. I had an MF and an N word for him. Listen to this dude talk, and you will realize he is the quintessential black white supremacist. He's the sheriff of Milwaukee County, including Milwaukee. He asked Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin to send out the National Guard. And of course, the National Guard is there. They've instituted a curfew for teenagers. You know, they're doing what they can to restore the peace. Fine. Good. Nobody wants violence. Nobody wants anyone else to get hurt. Nobody wants the destruction of property. I'm just not going to cry over a single piece of property. I will mourn over anybody who is hurt or killed, God forbid killed. But I'm not going to spend 1 second crying over a damn piece of property unless it's mine. just being real. And I didn't have insurance on it. You know, side note, somebody stole my car back in 2011. And I was actually like, yes, because I had some great insurance on that. I'm like, damn it, I want to get rid of this car. The bastards returned it. They went on a joyride and returned it. So I'm not going to cry over property. Property can be replaced. Life cannot be replaced. So they brought up the National Guard. There's a curfew, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. Here's the thing. I want to challenge then Sheriff Clark. You called out the National Guard. Fine. We'll see your National Guard, and we're going to raise you a DOJ investigation. I want the Department of Justice to come to Milwaukee, to the sheriff's office as well as the PD, and I want you to investigate in Milwaukee the same way you did Ferguson and the same way you did in Baltimore, because I guarantee you, I will put a year's salary on it, that they are going to find the same type of pattern of behavior where they're disproportionately targeting black people and they are profiting off of black people. And this is just endemic to American policing. I don't, at this point, I don't care about trying to press charges against a particular officer. Because to get federal charges against a particular officer, the hurdle is so high, it's all but insurmountable. Forget that. What I want is the DOJ. This is all they're going to do, right? They're not going to press charges. I mean, they do have a lawsuit against Ferguson. Good, right? But I want the DOJ to do what they seem to be capable of doing and nothing more. They can't do anything more than go and research. So go and research Milwaukee. And come back in a year, and I guarantee you Sheriff Clark will look like the black white supremacist that he is, because the environment that is fostered in Milwaukee, it's one of the most segregated cities, regions in the nation. Milwaukee has a history of problems so I know for a fact you want to be bad and call out the National Guard. Fine, do what you have to do to protect property. But if the DOJ comes knocking on your door, how many people would have to be fired? And how much evidence would be stacked on top of all the other evidence that American police agencies and sheriff departments have a problem with systemic racism and overwhelmingly disproportionately targeting the black community? Is there anybody who's going to take me up on that bet? Because I know Sheriff Clark won't. All right, caller, you're the first caller of the night. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, it's John from Mississippi.
John from Mississippi, what's on your mind, man?
Hey, well, first off, I think the sheriff, I think he's just purely a psychopath.
Yeah.
And everything he does is opportunistic.
Yep.
And nothing more. I don't think there's any depth to what he's doing. I just think he knows that's how he got to where he's at, and that's how he can go further in life for him.
Yep. It's a stepping stone for him.
Everyone else be damned.
Yep.
But the second thing I wanted to ask you is, because I heard you talking about how, there aren't, that white people don't protest authority, really. I mean, just in any context. I mean, the 60s was the last,
Yep.
you know, the last time you saw masses of white people maybe occupied a little bit. That, you know, that was a pretty big bust. Like how do I go about making a difference? Because if I go out and I join a protest or whatever, against the police, whether it's for black people or for white people, I'll be ruined. Like, I'd probably be fired. I wouldn't be able to stay here. I'd have to go find some other you know, some other way to make ends meet, because that's the mindset. If you're not in an urban area, if you're in suburbia or rural areas, you know, cops are superior people to you. That's just how it is. You know, it's they kind of look at it like military people. It's just that mindset is so instilled, and I think it's because it's way too easy for people to just jump on. Like if I said, you know, well, I think there are corrupt cops, and I'm going to go out and protest against it. I would, my family would shun me because that's just not what you do.
That's crazy. Like I mean, I wonder how much that is the case for white. Because John, I know you, man. You know, you've been calling in for a while. I know you're white. I wonder if how much that's the case for a lot of white people. But hey, man, thanks for that. But to answer your question, here's the problem I have with some white folks. This is the problem I have with you white people. No, the problem I have particularly with there's an opportunity for a great alliance between the police, the people who believe that there's a police state, and the hyper militarization of our police, cop block, our police, those different sites, people who do great research on police brutality across the board. However, they seem to fall off when it comes to the police violence that we see in the black community. And if that group of white men generally who can see that the police have a problem could actually not be racist and admit that that same problem is magnified in the black community, if they could just swallow that one pill, which is a huge thing to ask, right? I'm asking for us to pretty much erase, you know, history of white supremacy in America. But if they could get that in their head, then they will realize they have no greater partner in fighting the police state than the black community. Because if there is a police state, it started first in the black community. So I don't know if you run in any of those circles, but you know, that's a fight that some determined white guy and or gal could actually lead a charge on and bring some synergy between those two audiences. But as it stands right now, you know, they seem to be able to see police brutality anywhere and everywhere except for when it happens in the black community. Therefore, there is no alliance between those two groups when there obviously is a great alliance that could exist. But that's all I've got, John. Thanks for the call, man. 857-600-0518. I just want to give you a couple of stats that I have here on Milwaukee. So, like I said, Milwaukee is the most segregated county in the entire nation. Hang on. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Most segregated in the country. Yeah, no. Most segregated in the country. And hang on, let's see if I have. You actually have to see it, so I'll share the tweet for those of you who are listening in. So there's the racial income inequality, the largest racial achievement gap, the highest black male incarceration rates. Milwaukee is 70% black, but the state is only 7% black. So that should tell you the type of concentration and segregation that you have there. Milwaukee is 70% black, yet the entire state of Wisconsin is only 7% black. That should tell you about the segregation. Half of Wisconsin's black neighborhoods are literally jails. I mean, when you have this, so okay, fine. That's that. Two things you're going to find in that type of scenario. You're going to find violence and crime. Three things. You're going to find violence and crime. Yes. You're also going to find treatment from. You're going to find people who are just ready to explode. And the reason they're ready to explode is because you're also going to find the third thing, which is a police force that targets and systemically targets the minority community there. So I don't care what anybody, you know what? I don't know anything about Seville. He might have been guilty as hell. I don't know about the case, but and they probably do need the National Guard. But one thing I do know is if they do a DOJ full investigation like they did in Baltimore, and they expose it and they report on it and they publicize it and they show it, we are going to find the same exact type, probably even worse, the type of racist and systemic oppression that we saw in Ferguson as well as in Baltimore. And I wanted the DOJ to do it, and I want them to do a new one. I think they did one back in 2010, 2011, but they should do a new one because I want there to be a city by city, county by county case made to show that everything that we've been saying has been true. Not for our sake, because we just know it, because we experienced it, or at least our cousins experienced, or twice removed. We know we've seen it firsthand, or we know someone who's seen it firsthand. But for people who have just casually dismissed it as, they're just exaggerating. Nah, bitch, we're not exaggerating. It is as bad as we have described. And even though it may not be the person, it may be that Seville Smith was guilty as hell. But you know what? Here's an opportunity for us to shed the light on all of the problems that are going on inside of that county and that city. All right, 857-600-0518. Let me shift gears here a little bit. I'm going to do a hard shift, and I want to cover some pretty big news happening in the international community. Let's start. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the debate that I think was pretty revealing as to why she didn't want to debate all along. Like, after watching the debate with Debbie, you realize why she didn't want to debate. All right. So one thing I want to cover is Doctors Without Borders. Another hospital was bombed, struck, and they're estimating probably 20 people killed or wounded. Airstrikes bombed their hospitals. And a Saudi airstrike bombed their hospital in northwestern Yemen. So the ceasefire between Iranian-backed rebels and a Saudi coalition broke down last week, and the hostilities have resumed after months of the ceasefire, leading to today's airstrike where about 20 people have been killed. So this is at least the fourth Doctors Without Borders hospital that has been hit since 2015. So this becomes a pattern after a while, right? And actually, there's a quote here. Today's airstrike appears to be the latest in a string of unlawful attacks targeting hospitals, highlighting an alarming pattern of disregard for civilian life. And this is from Magdalena Mugrabi, Amnesty International's deputy director of the Middle East and North African program. The U.S. State Department has condemned the recent attack, but October 3rd, 2016, the U.S. themselves, we accidentally bombed. We accidentally bombed. I'm sorry. That was the worst place in the world to laugh. I'm sorry, but sometimes I give us more of a hard time. There's no way. I don't believe for a second that America intentionally bombed, but intentional or not, people did die because of a bombing of Doctors Without Borders in hospital in Afghanistan. So while we condemned it, we are part of the problem. where doctors and their patients, this phenomenal organization, Doctors Without Borders, they go into the most dangerous places in the world to do exactly to treat the people who are the victims of these types of wars. And intentionally or accidentally, we have seen now over 4 hospitals hit in Yemen alone since 2015. So there's a pattern. And of course, America, we ourselves accidentally bombed one. So that's going on. And also in international news, the Kurds, exciting news coming out of Syria. Pulling up this image here. The Iraqi Kurds versus ISIS. The Peshmerga have cleared 5 villages, roughly 20 square miles of ISIS territory east of Mosul. They were assisted by U.S. airstrikes. The Kurds, the Peshmerga, they have been one of the most effective fighting forces against ISIS. And one of the things that they actually have all female units that are out fighting, and they are, I mean, seriously, they are really effective at what they do. They have shown the international community that they're capable of flushing out ISIS. And you would think this would be a good thing because ISIS is a threat to the international community. They intentionally are setting themselves up to be a threat to the global order. But Baghdad, Turkey, they do not really see this as they don't feel favorable towards Kurdistan, to the Kurds, because of the territorial problems and the fact that Kurdistan is not a sovereign nation, yet they want to be. And they have demonstrated. So one of the key things just from my international studies is that sovereignty really depends on, international recognition. Yes. But it also depends on the ability to defend that sovereign region. And the more the Kurds demonstrate that they're not only able to demonstrate their ability to control and have the legitimate force of power in their region, but they're also able to solve an international problem for us, which is ISIS. The more they do that, the more legitimate their claim to be an independent state is. And that is a threat to all of the nations where Kurdistan and the Kurdish people actually intersect through multiple nations. So this makes it really complicated, where the Kurds are an effective tool in combating ISIS. This complicates the U.S., our ability to assist them and aid them, because the more successful Peshmerga is, the more the international community realizes. And this is, there are other things, but to me, I think this stands out the most because it is a question of, could they be sovereign? And the more they solve this problem for us, the more we realize they have the legitimate capacity. The question is, will there ever be international recognition? And that's a totally different conversation that we will not have today. In other foreign policy news, Donald Trump, honestly, that wasn't on purpose. I swear that was not on purpose. But Donald Trump actually had a speech today, billed as a major foreign policy speech. The overall theme, if you listen to his speech, you realize his theme is radical Islamic terrorism. That's really what he wanted to drive home. He wanted to drive home the fact that he could say radical Islamic terrorism more times in one speech than President Obama has ever said it in his entire 8 years, if President Obama has even gotten close to saying it one time. Because to the Republican Party, not just Donald Trump, but to the Republican Party, saying radical Islamic terrorism is akin to saying Beetlejuice. If you say it, then he'll show up, right? It's like the most important thing you could do to combat radical Islamic terrorism is to say radical Islamic terrorism. Never mind the fact that President Obama has literally been bombing the hell out of radical Islamic terrorism. Never mind that. Never mind the fact that they don't have any actual policy solutions above and beyond what President Obama is already doing, because what President Obama is already doing is pretty damn aggressive. It doesn't mean anything unless you say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. It doesn't mean anything unless you say radical Islamic terrorism. But in his speech, he reiterated, and I got to bring up speaking of this, talking about 9/11. We'll talk about Rudy Giuliani in a second. But Donald Trump reiterated his position that he was in opposition to the Iraq war from the beginning, which is questionable at best. He when he asked if he would support the war, and this is he's alluding to the September 11th, 2002 episode on Howard Stern, where he said that if he would support the war in Iraq, he said, yeah, I guess so. So it's kind of questionable. Like I said, it's one of those Donald Trump moments. I don't know. He blamed Obama for withdrawing from Iraq during this speech, which I don't know if we should even unpack what's wrong with that statement, because what's wrong with that statement is almost pointless when you're dealing with somebody like Donald Trump, who wants to use a talking point, right? So he's blaming Obama for the withdrawal from Iraq, yet I wonder if he even knows the real reason we left Iraq, or if anyone has even given him a one sheet on the reason America left Iraq. I mean, when Obama took office in 2009, he inherited George W. Bush's plan, that was written and forged in 2008 with Prime Minister Milwaukee. That status of forces agreements called for the withdrawal of all American troops by the end of 2011. In other words, we had already agreed that we were going to have a withdrawal by 2011 when President Obama went into office. And the reason we made that agreement was not for any other reason. Well, a couple of reasons, but the one that stands out the most was that we couldn't agree on the immunity of our soldiers in Iraq. So that, on top of the fact that this is a plan that President Obama inherited, and again, I'm taking a great pause here, because it's like, do facts matter enough to actually warrant rebutting Donald Trump with facts? I don't think they do. All right. So in his speech, he actually talked again about keeping the oil. He said he has long said that we should have kept the oil in Iraq, another area where his judgment has proven to be correct. And another thing he pointed out is that he doesn't want any nation building, that America should not be in the business of nation building. But at the same time, and in the same breath, he's talking about taking the oil from Iraq. So nation building is bad, but plundering a nation's wealth and their natural resources, it's okay. And you see this kind of dissonance live and in action with Donald Trump's speeches, because on the one hand, he gives you the impression that he's going to be non-interventionist, right? He's going to withdraw and take down out of the region because we shouldn't have been there in the first place. We should not be in the business of nation building. But in the same speech, he's going to say that we need to, he alludes to all of his plans to eradicate radical Islamic terrorism, but he leaves it open enough so that if it involves intervention, then we can go in, and not only go in just to rid ourselves of radical Islamic terrorism, but we can go in so that we can plunder their wealth and take their oil. So he's playing both sides of the equation at the same time. This is classic Donald Trump. He's claiming to be a non-interventionist, but at the same time, here he is doing basically everything he has said is going to require intervention. All right. So here's his solution. This is a quote. I will call for an international conference focused on the goal, and the goal being ending radical Islamic terrorism. We will work side by side with our friends in the Middle East, including our greatest ally, Israel. We will partner with King Abdullah of Jordan and President Sisi of Egypt and all others who recognize this ideology of death that must be extinguished. So his solution to the problem of radical Islamic terrorism is to have a meeting, and to have a meeting with people who more than likely would not agree to meet, for one, and then certainly probably would not agree to work together on an issue, not publicly, maybe behind back doors. But his solution to ending radical Islamic terrorism is to have a meeting. Okay. It's Donald Trump. Anyway, moving on from Donald Trump. One thing that did stand out in this speech that was problematic is the two things. Well, he did not mention, as you would expect, he didn't mention his original claim that he was going to give them a religious test. If they were Muslims, then they couldn't come into the country, or moratorium. He didn't mention the moratorium on allowing Muslims into the country, but he did allude to an ideological test, and said he would accept people if they believed in American values. Quote, those who do not believe in our Constitution or who support bigotry and hatred will not be admitted for immigration into the country. Only those who we expect to flourish in our country and embrace a tolerant American society should be issued immigrant visas. I'm pausing because does he realize that if that's the test for entrance into America, what the hell are you going to do with all of the intolerant people who are already in America? Particularly, like, what are you going to do with you know, if they have to be okay with the LGBTQ community, which he alluded to today, like he actually said it today. If you have to be okay with the LGBTQ community, then what about Mike Huckabee and the religious right? Right. So are they going to be grandfathered in? So the Republican Party's bigotry can be grandfathered in to America, but we can't let any other bigots come into America. So the ideological purity test and the ideological test in general is as ridiculous as a religious test. It is. I mean, you're not going to, even if they did say, I believe that, you know, all people are created equal, blah, 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 blah. You know, first of all, you're not going to, that's not even a test that he could, again, it's Donald Trump. Let me stop talking. But in terms of his fear mongering with regard to refugees, here's an ongoing lie that I've seen people on the left even get into. This idea that refugees can just waltz their way into America, and that because we're bleeding heart liberals, that we just, you know, President Obama is just allowing, you know, refugees to come in and we're not checking them. We're not screening them. This has been an ongoing thing that we've heard from the Republican Party, and I've heard it from some quote unquote progressives. But the truth of the matter is that to get a refugee visa is one of the most difficult and strenuous processes that we have for any other class, any other group. I mean, it's a year-long process to be vetted to get into the United States as a person coming and fleeing from a nation that is at war, right? The most vulnerable people, the people who need to get away the most, the people who can use asylum the very most, we give them hell to get entrance into the United States. I mean, you have the National Counterterrorism Center, intelligence community. They look into them. They're screened by the FBI. They're screened by the Department of Homeland Security. They're screened by the State Department. But they give you the impression that, and when I say they, our elected Republican officials give you the impression that there's not sufficient screening because we don't have our director of the FBI, James Comey, literally signing off on every single refugee coming into America. And because we don't have the director of the FBI signing off on every single refugee coming into America, then we're not adequately screening enough. Never mind that our screening process for our refugees is by far the most strenuous in any other group, any other category, hands down. But it's the rhetorical sleight of hand that allows this to be a consistent and persistent thorn in the side of our desire to grant asylum and refugee status to people fleeing the most difficult and the most dangerous of environments. And to give you an example, just a comparison, the EU has taken millions of refugees from Syria. Canada has taken 25,000 refugees from Syria. America, we've struggled to take 10,000 Syrian refugees. Just to put it in perspective. And this is from the Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada. He said, ultimately being open and respectful towards each other is a much more powerful way to diffuse hatred and anger than big walls and oppressive policies. But again, we're talking about Donald Trump. So I feel like the last 10 minutes of truth has just kind of been wasted because we're talking about a person who is completely oblivious to what truth is. All right, caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and what's your question?
Yes, hello, Dave, Benjamin.
Benjamin.
This is Jared from Downingtown, PA.
Hey, how's it going, Jared?
I'd like one of your callers, I believe it was last week, brought up Tom Hartman talking about privilege of of people who vote for Jill Stein. And I want to bring that up again because I don't think you ever got back to that topic. I'm a regular caller on Tom Hartman's program, and I can tell you for a fact he will censor calls, like he will not take calls that attack Hillary Clinton or promote Jill Stein in any way, because I have tried to do it before, and I have not been answered when I was put on hold. And it's not just Tom Hartman. It's David Pakman. It's Sam Cedar. It's all these progressive shows. You know, they've been going all out on Jill Stein. They claim that she's anti-science or who's her vice presidential candidate? I don't know. Who's her vice president?
I think his last name is Barack. Yeah,
or something.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm horrible with names. Yeah,
that he's an extremist.
Well.
Yeah, they've been really going all out. And if you go to the new Progressive Voice, he's got some responses to both Tom Hartman and David Pakman on
I checked them
Jill
out.
Stein and their attacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I appreciate that call. I don't mind talking about it. I do want to clear up the line for the other callers. So, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how they do their shows. You know, I'm not going to criticize them for how they do their show because I'm going to do my show the way the hell I want to do my show. So I'm not going to criticize anybody for how they want to run their show. You just have to make the call if that's what you want to watch and consume. And just like my show, you know, I'm going to say some things that you're going to absolutely disagree. I'm going to ignore I am going to ignore certain topics, mainly because I may not just be as informed or don't have my opinion yet ready to be delivered. I haven't talked about Black Lives Matters platform because I'm still thinking about it. So, you know, I'm not going to criticize them for not wanting to talk about something because I intentionally don't talk about things. My motivation may be different. I don't know. I can't get in their heads. But most of all, it's like it is an arrogance thing. Like, you're not going to tell me how to do my show, so I'm not going to turn around and then tell them how to do their show, right? Because I am an arrogant asshole. So that's number one. Number two, in regard to Jill Stein, if they want to support Hillary Clinton, that's their business, man. Let them support Hillary Clinton. If they don't want to talk to people who are going to support Jill Stein, that's their show. That's their business. You have to make the call whether or not you want to continue to support them. I've never heard Tom talk about that particular caller said that he called black people ignorant because they're not supporting Hillary Clinton. That was the assertion on that call that you referenced. I still don't really have any evidence of that particular usage of that language. So if somebody wants to send me that link, that's fine. But the only thing out of everything you said that I actually want to talk about is, and I don't know that if I'm even ready to talk about it today because I've been avoiding talking about, what's his name? Baraka, let's go. Let's see. It's Jill Stein and Baraka something. I don't know this guy's last name. Ajuma Baraka. There you go. I've been intentionally avoiding a conversation on Ajuma Baraka because I know the role that voice, not him specifically, right, but that position from the black community, I know exactly what role that played in undermining Bernie Sanders. Some of Baraka's language and the quotes that are coming out now clearly shows you that he had a disdainful view of Bernie Sanders in general, white progressives and people who supported Bernie Sanders. And that's his business, right? But I also know that one of the number one problems Bernie Sanders could have benefited from was a reasonable look from the black left. And if not an endorsement, but a strategic alliance to combat Hillary Clinton. They couldn't even get that because you had a lot of people on the far left, the black left, which I love them in general, but they were so focused on the standardized critique of all things Democratic that they did not see the opportunity that Bernie Sanders presented that was uniquely different than anything else we've seen in our adult lifetimes. So the reason I haven't talked about Baraka yet is because if I start talking about Baraka, I'm really going to start unpacking a lot of the problems that I have with the black left, which is permanent critics. If you fall into the trope of being a critic above action and critique just for the sake of critique and so blind to the opportunity in front of you because you're just locked into this mode of critique, then you undermine one of the most legitimate chances we had to combat this neoliberal paradigm that we've all been bitching about for a very long time. But motherfuckers like Baraka and that type of thinking could not pause in their critique long enough to realize that this was a legitimate opportunity to do something else. And I have some issues with Jill Stein too. I'm still voting for her. So everything I said, I guess, is moot because I'm still voting for her. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a legitimate reason to avoid talking about them, because if I do, I'm going to be truthful about how I really feel about some of the more problematic things. So maybe, Tom Hartman doesn't want to talk about them because he sees the same thing I see and just won't say motherfucker about it. I don't know. Can't tell you that. But I will tell you that Debbie Wasserman Schultz got her ass handed to her in the debates yesterday. If you guys get a chance to go to miami.cbslocal.com, you could get a chance to look at the debate in its entirety. It was only an hour. And in that hour, I really believe Tim Canova really exposed why Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not want to debate. She is too vulnerable. She's too vulnerable to her record. She's too vulnerable to her disposition. She's too vulnerable to her she has like this natural cantankerousness, if that's a word, that really betrays her. Now, in all fairness and all transparency, I think Tim Canova could have done better, but I think he did good enough to expose the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as a national figure, has failed the Democratic Party. And so why would we reward her with another opportunity to be in a leadership position when she has already failed? Not only has she failed on the national level, but she's failed on a local level. One of the things that bothered me the most about the debate is that they never got to the payday lenders and her support of payday lenders. In the 23rd District of Florida, there is a payday lender on almost every damn corner, and each of those lenders charge almost like 300% for you to take a payday loan. And it puts you in a perpetual cycle of never being able to recover from this loan, right? So they take the most vulnerable people and they capitalize on them in the most perverted way. And this is endorsed and supported and championed by someone who's supposed to be leading the populist party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They didn't talk about that yesterday, so that was, but they did talk about the DNC leaks. And no sooner than they brought up the DNC leaks did she go straight to her red scare tactics. Right. And she started blaming Russia and how unprecedented this is for the Russians to be involved, blah, 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 blah. The substance of the emails. We could talk about both. Let's talk about Russia getting involved in our politics. We should have a problem with it. Fine. But let's also talk about the substance, Debbie. And so she was able to avoid. I think Tim should have slammed her a little bit harder on that because she was getting around. She was skirming. She was squeamish and did not want to attack that issue head on because she was vulnerable to it. And so, ultimately, I think the debate was revealing. I think it reveals the problem of uncontested seats and people becoming comfortable with their political office because of loyalty. And I'm gonna be honest with you. One of the things I notice about the Democratic Party, it's probably the same with the Republican Party, is this mafia mentality, this familiar thing, this family, like you don't betray the family and you work your way up and you start at the bottom and you work your way up and this is my territory and you never cross into my territory and that's your territory over here and we're going to take you and we're going to place you over here and you can. This is the mentality of the Democrat of politics and of party politics, right? And so you never get people who are able to run against someone who is a bad politician because the mafia of the party protects them. And this is what we see with somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I almost named some other names there in Florida, but I won't because I still kind of like them. And I'm not quite ready to pick a public fight with them. I will, but not yet, not tonight. But this is what happens when you have people sitting in seats for 20 years and do nothing for their community. And they do nothing because they're protected by a party. And because they're protected by a party, you have people who are able to get away with political murder, doing nothing for their constituents. But they're okay because the party is never going to run. It's the same mentality as the police. And I wanted to say this the other day, and I guess I had to wait till today. It's the same mentality as the police. We complain about police officers never standing up against the bad police officers. Well, when the hell will politicians stand up against the politicians who are doing nothing in their districts, who are doing nothing but raising money, doing nothing but doing photo ops, doing nothing but perpetually running for the next office, for the next position, and never taking care of the position that they have? And I guess if they start doing that, then there'll be nobody left. All right, this is, let me check my list of things here because we're already over time, and I'm going to take this last caller. Trump, refugees. Oh, Cam Newton. All right, I am going to talk about Cam, but I'll take this caller, and then it's we'll talk about Cam Newton. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? 631, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? Okay, well, cool. We'll move on. All right, last but not least, and I'm going to get out of here. This should be pretty quick. I think it should be quick. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm stalling until I can get his picture on the air. Cam Newton. I like Cam Newton. I still like him even today. So Cam Newton did an interview with GQ magazine. A photo shoot, everything, the whole spread. Sharp, great shots. Looked good. Inevitably, they came to the conversation about the last football season and some of the treatment that Cam Newton got and the perception that he had, quite frankly, last year, the position that he had, quite frankly, last year, and that many people who were observing last year believed that a lot of the animus and the anger towards Cam Newton and his boisterousness and his celebratory attitude after every touchdown, the animus towards him was racially driven. I mean, it was pretty much unified consensus on our side of the equation that this was race driven. But Cam Newton, he came with a different story today, and I'm not slamming him yet. I'm going to slam him for like 5 seconds, but let's unpack it first. So the article, the interviewer said that he asked him straight out. So he said, "Do you feel like fans are racist towards you?" Cam Newton replied, "It's not racism. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion." So if it's not racism, the author writes, what is it? What is it, do you think? And this is Cam Newton's response. He said, "I'll let you be the judge. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like some people have certain beliefs and I have my own belief, and we can agree to disagree on certain things, but this is what makes sports so amazing, that we can start a discussion around a table in the newspaper and in the magazines that will get people's attention, and that's what sports does." So in January, right before the Super Bowl, Cam Newton said, "I'm an African-American quarterback that may scare a lot of people because they haven't seen nothing that they can compare me to." And Cam Newton said, "I don't want this to be about race." He said, "Because it's not. It's not. Like, we're beyond that as a nation." I don't want this to be about race because it's not. It's not. Like, we're beyond that as a nation. All right, so I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to jump on Cam Newton here. I think that's the best way, and I'm going to close it out. Because you know what? After a while, when you see this shit every single day and you realize you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, sometimes you just get too tired to even talk about this shit. And I think ultimately that's where, people are saying that Cam is selling out and that Cam is trying to be political. I think Cam Newton is where I get most of the time before I just drop a whole series of F-bombs. And you're just tired. You're tired because if you go out there and you say something and he says what we all know to be true and he knows is true, then he's going to be attacked every single day, all day, by thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people all day, every day. And it won't stop on Twitter. It won't stop online. It's going to spill over into the press conferences. And so every waking moment of the next 8 months, or I don't even know what month we're in anymore, but through January, through the time he wins this Super Bowl, because he's going to win this year, right? Every waking moment between now and then will be about whether or not he thinks the fans that had a problem with him were racist. Add on top of that, sometimes the black community got your back, sometimes they don't. So he would have jumped out there to be the champion on this, and it's a hit or miss sometimes. He'll get love from black Twitter. He'll get love from the internet, but there will be some people in his some black people in his immediate community that will turn on him. And so I don't agree with anything he said in this statement, but when you look at it holistically, I get it. And he doesn't want to fight that fight. And quite honestly, he fought it last year, and he's probably just still too tired. So that means the rest of us, you, me, people who see it, people who live it, people who don't make millions and can live separate from some of the effects of it, the rest of us, we should still fight it. Even if he's too tired to fight it. We don't have to fight it on his behalf, but we don't have to take this. This is not the this is not the statement of, this is his reality. This is not our reality. His reality is he just doesn't feel like fighting it anymore. And this is the only thing that makes me mad about this, is the fact that he is battle fatigued and isn't willing to fight it anymore. Because the rest of us, we don't really have a choice, right? We can't escape from it. We don't make enough money to live separate from it. The only thing that made me mad about this was that I could see he visually threw in the towel and just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Not that he's blind to it, not that he doesn't think it's racism, but he's not going to give voice to this problem that's going to dog him 24/7 for the next several months. That's the only thing that made me mad. But when I realized that by the end of almost every show, I have to go home and play, damn it, Mario, just to decompress from the reality of what I have to talk about every night. Well, when you think about it from that perspective, just leave the brother alone and let that man play some football. All right, guys. See you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.